This is Christoph Ellick. This is another session of the Advanced VolleyStation Pro spreadsheet. Today we're going to go into very advanced, almost programmatical software engineering kind of stuff, but that's where you really unleash the power of any spreadsheet or any any Excel spreadsheet or anything is the concept of a variable inside a cell, and then we'll look at some information about the player name and everything that are more VolleyStation side. So one of the things that I wanted to tell you is all the things that we've seen before, right? In all the things that we've seen before, we had a lot of what I call hard coded, which is things are coded directly into the query. And every time I want to create another query, like if I want to look at the player number 3, and if I want to look at the player number 5 and the player number 8, I have to just cut and paste and change the number, and it's possible, and it's okay, but then it's not really dynamic, right? If I want to create a spreadsheet and just have tons of information, but then suddenly said, well, I don't want that player, I want that player number 9, then I don't have to create another spreadsheet just for the number 9. What I want to do is I want to have some kind of box that I can scroll down and say, hey, by the way, I want to get that number 9, and I want to see what that player is doing. So I got some kind of player information, right? But anyway, so the concept of a variable is more or less the same if you know numbers, if you know Excel, is what we call this cell or this cell number that you reference with this $sign, right? So in Excel or in Page, when you want to say, okay, I want this cell plus this cell, and you don't know what is the value in that cell, you actually reference there with a $sign. I will refer you to actually learn about Excel about that. The way VolleyStation works is they have this concept of a $sign, but we need this function called a VSCELL to be able to replace information inside the string that we create for the VS count with the variable. So this one here may sound like weird to you, but we're going to decompose this one, okay? So I clean up, I did a complete new spreadsheet for those who want, and let's start. So what we had before is we had a VS count, right? And we had star, and we had A, and we had zone 40, right? And that was 87, and that was the attack on my zone 40. But let's say now that I got, I want to be able to switch my zone to see my number for some reason. So follow with me, I'm going to do something that is interesting. I'm going to go way down in my spreadsheet, and I'm going to say that my zone are 20, 30, 40, 80 for the back row type and everything, 90. We don't really have a zone 70. I'm going to put it anyway. That's your pipe on the 70 zone. I think Brazil does that, maybe a couple teams, maybe some highball. You could have that. I'm not crazy, but let's do that for the sake of us. So these are the region that I got here. So far, so good? Now, what I want to do is here, I want to create a drop box or a way that I can selection all these one. So I'm going to create, and now it's something I need to, here, I'm going to create a drop down, and I'm going that drop down is going to contain information from this to this. So I'm going to, I think I can select all that, right? So it's going to contain information. You already see this B17 and B22, so it's going to contain information from this one, and I'm going to save that. So now I can select my zone. You okay with that? So how can this number change based on what that zone here? So that's where the VSCELL is going to happen. So I'm going to do, it's going to be, right, remember what I like to do is I like to separate my stuff. So I'm going to do, it's going to be a VSCELL. I'm going to open my bracket. I'm going to close it here, so I know it's closed. And now that 40 here, you see that 40? I want this to change. So I want it to be a variable. So it's going to be the variable number 1. And right after this, I'm going to have a comma. I said my variable number 1 is what is in my zone B1. So I said B1. You see how it changed colors right away? And it gives me like a little green? That it means recognize. So the way you read that is I'm going to count all the home attack by somebody, which is my first of the list of variable, and that first is in B1. So I'm going to take all the attack in zone 70. Do I have any? 0. Now, if I click my zone 40, I go back to my 87. And if I got 20, now I got back to my 32. So far, so good? Now, what if I want to do that for the opposite team or the home team? Home team, opposite team, and in A, I'm going to create a drop box from those. Now I can decide if I want the home team, the opposite team, or maybe I want all the attack. So how do I do that here now? So you can pause, try and come back, or we'll do it together. So pause now. So what I could do is this. I would say, oh, okay, it's easy, Christophe. I'm going to get another variable. So I'm going to probably put this. And what I'll do is I'll put the number 2 here. Because the 1 is B1, right? But I want the number 2. So what is the number 2 here in the list? So the first one is B1. And the second one is going to be A1. You see this one here? So now my second variable here, which corresponds to my home team, is this second variable in the list here. So now I got all the attack from zone 20. So let's go back again. If I got my home from zone 40, I got my 87. And if I got my opponent team from zone 40, I got 85. What I like though, usually what we like to do is to keep the order of the variable in the string the same. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say that the first variable here is going to be number 1. And the second one is going to be number 2. So I can read that. But here now I need to change the order because my first one needs to be A1. And my second variable, B1, that is going to replace by number 2 is going to be B1. Now the color change, but you can see that the first one is going to be A1 and the second variable is going to be B1. And now I can see what's happening in zone 90, for instance. Right? The opposite team attacked only 3 times in zone 90. That's 4 possible. And 1. Okay, so that's the information about those one there, right? So that's what we do with the VSCELL. Couple things. The $sign is if I want to modify and which one of the column of the line are actually staying. So if I copy this one here, right, and I do Control C, and if I copy it below, do you notice what happened? It's now relatively calculating based on the difference because this one was calculating between A1 and B1. When I move it, it just translates the fact that the calculation of the cell is going to be the next one, which is not what we want. So what I want here is I want to lock my cell, and that's where I'm going to refer you to the Excel because I believe I can lock the column and I can lock the row that says don't move them when I copy. So when I copy and I paste now, it's keeping the same one. So that's the only reason why we got this $sign, and I refer you to the Excel or numbers manual. Okay, here's another way. So that's the first way where we actually have the cell, and I think that's the preferred way, and that's the way that we understand. Now, there is another way that is kind of a bit more advanced, which is with the ampersand. So instead of having a cell that has the variable that is replaced, you build your query, if you want, by adding and concatenating the variable and the string. So the way you read that is your A1, and you concatenate the string with A, and then you concatenate. Again, that's the advanced one, where you can just add the variable and string, and it's just done that together. Okay? So let's see what's happening here. That's very well. That's good. But now you realize that formulas, you're going to receive formulas, and now you can read formulas, and now you can read certain things in VolleyStation. If I open, for instance, let's say I open the spreadsheet and I open, I don't know, a number 6, and I want to set this string here, and I want to figure out what this one is, right? Do you see this query here? It's almost unreadable, but you see that you got all the number 1, 2, 3, 4. You should be able to start to read there. What is happening here is we're going to have a variable number 1 E, and a number 1 is in B6, right? So we're going to have the setter 1 E with 2, which is C6, which is the setter call. So right now we may or may not have. And you can start understanding the query now. You can start reading it. Obviously, so here's a little text strips and everything is you can't really read that. Like this is super hard to read. So here's a little trick that we learn is that if you can read the query like this and you can present the query like this, it's more and it's better for you to understand. You understand that it's a percentage and there is an N, right? And this one is we're going to have the number of kill by whatever is in cell number A3. And we're going to, because it's an N, we're going to have said that it's a good or perfect pass. And we're going to say that the set is going to be from zone 2, right? So this is better for you to understand than this one, which is the exact same thing, except that it's hard to read. So I'm giving you 2 links here, which are little function on the web. I'm going to copy that to show you how it works. And those 2 websites are the one that I use to read the query. So I'm here in this online Excel formula verifier. I paste the formula, right? And I think it's enter. And maybe I need to remove the equal. Oh, it doesn't want to read this one. So this one is probably too complex with the number of the variable. But let's see the other one. I think the other one is probably even better. Here we are. For some reason, it doesn't like my my variable there. But that's supposed to help you read the information there and understand what is happening. We may have some space there, and those 2 will allow you to read and present the data a bit better. I'm wondering if it's the equal. Yeah, so it's calculating. I don't know why I may have, you know what? I know what is happening. This, and I wrote it here. This got me multiple times, right? Some of the double quote here are not really double quote because it's a presentation and everything. So those one here are not double quote, and that's why it doesn't understand the query. So I'll show you. And you may be stumbled it, but what is happening is this is actually double quote, where the one that I got was this kind of Java doc whatever something like that, but it was not a real double quote, and that's why I didn't understand. So now if I paste that, that's much better because it did realize that this one was a double quote and it was a string. Do you understand that? So this one is showing you that format, so it's good to understand. And now if I go back to this one, now I got a better representation. So lesson learned, Christophe actually wrote it into the presentation, is watch out when you cut and paste for that presentation because some of the double quotes are not real double quotes. But what I wanted to show you is, for instance, when I go into formulas that I like this, and this one is probably very complex, right? And I want to understand how it works, right? Because you get a spreadsheet sometime and you say, how does this one work, right? You kind of understand that you can specify the rotation, the opposite rotation, so you understand it may be a Z1 or Z1 and a Z1, you know, you understand the point range, the point difference, the player order that we actually saw, but how do you see the query? I always go to places like this, and this one may be a bit complex to render, and it's giving me a better understanding, so I can read that. I said, okay, I got a chord first, and then I got an end, so now I can see what's happening in the end. I got, you know, I got maybe multiple situation in the end and I can read it a bit better. This one should also, hopefully, fingers crossed, there it is. Right? And now I got a better understanding that this is my VSCELL. Do you understand this one? So with the, and these are the variables that we just talked about. So I can understand where the PA is coming from and all this kind of information. Okay? So that's how to handle the complex formula. So you got the variable, we handle the complex formula, and now for something that is really, really fun is what VolleyStation had, which is the fact that we can actually get the name of the player outside, the team name, and the number of sets. So these are some very interesting stuff. So let's look by the player. Player gives you the number of a player based on some query. The query is the team, the number in the team roster, and then the optional position. So if you look at this one, this VS player, I want to, in my home team, I want to see the 5th player, right? That is an outside. So again, I'm going to copy it and it's going to air in because you see all these double quotes. So we'll change them. So I'm going to my spreadsheet and I want to go here around here and I'm going to copy it. And this will probably fail, right? Because all the double quotes are not double quotes. So I'm going to change them. I probably don't have a 5th outside. So let's say I want my second outside. Oh, maybe they're not categorized. So that's another thing that I need to understand. If I go to my team, my season is going to be the demo season. And if I go to the Puerto Rico team, I got no position here. You see that? The only thing that I got is my lib. So I got 0 position, so that's what I cannot get it. So then it's probably come from, yeah, it come from VolleyMetrics. So let me do that with a different team then, and we'll see that. I'll do my team that I got. So I'm going to go to my spreadsheet, but instead of taking the Puerto Rico team, I'm going to go into I think that's my season here. And yeah, it doesn't matter how many matches because that's not what we're going to look at. And now my second outside is my number 6. My third outside is my number 8. My 4th outside is my number 9, which is true. Believe me, that's what they are, right? And I think my middle, I may not have a middle. Is it? Yeah, my second middle. And my first middle is at number 2 is Omari, right? So this one is showing me the 5th outside, right? So you'll see this type of query in a lot of spreadsheet, which is if my player number 1 libero doesn't exist, then give me the number 0, and otherwise give me the player of the libero. You'll see that, right? So that's a player. The other thing that you can do is you can now have the player name, right? So you can have the player of the 5th person in the roster. So let me copy this one. And again, it's going to fail because of the double quote. So I'm entering the double quote. And I forgot my equal sign. And now it's Ben David's number 6. But that would be good if I can actually have I want to see that player's name. So let's pause there for a sec, because you should be able to do that. So pause. And if you pause and you did it, congratulations. If you didn't pause, if you want to see what is happening is, I want that player name, but I want it from that cell, which is my cell F2. So I can do this. I can actually do the VSCELL. So I'm going to do VSCELL, right? And I'm going to add that, and I want The cell is going to be $F. Actually, it's going to be F1 because I'm actually do that. And now inside, it's going to be number 1. And I think it's a little I for iterative. I need to figure out what's happening here, right? And I want the player cell, just that number. What is that? Aha. So what is happening here? I should be able to get that by my number 2, right? So let me debug this one. I'll debug this one with you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, can I do of that number 2? Can I do that? Yes, it's Omari, right? So it understand that it's $2. So this one, this VSCELL of F1. Oh, it's not F1 that I want. Thank you for notifying and screaming at the screen. It's an F2. So what is happening here? Can I get, if I copy this one, and I may need to actually hack the other way. You know what I may need to do? Is I may need to do something like this. Just because the VSCELL may have some limitation there, and I don't have time to understand that. So I'm going to create a fixed screen with that F2 there, and now I got it. So it's a bit of a hack, but you remember what we said. There is another way of building your query with variables, which is this one here, which is where you add the n and you just create the string. And so what is happening is I did that formula there, which is also valid, right? Where I added an empty string and a number 2, and now I got the player name with the player that is here. So if I copy now this below, right? This one is going to be for the F3. So this one now, I want my second middle, right? The other one changes automatically. So I can have those variables here. And now, what is interesting is, let's look at that. This is this team here, right? But if I change the team now, I don't have to change anything. It tells me the first middle of that team, and it gives me the number of the second middle of that team. So that spreadsheet now will work with any team. I can come back to another team and again, I got my first middle and I got my second middle. Okay? So the other thing that we got is we have the team name. So I'll let you actually try to do that. This is not the set count. This should be VS team name. Thank you for notifying that. And I'm going to show you this. And I want the star. So what do you think it's going to be? Well, it's going to be this one here, the team here, right? And again, now, if I change and if I go back to, for instance, this team, I take a couple. Now, I got a Kingston and I got the first middle and the second middle. And now I can see their number of attack. Up, I want to see actually number 1, number of attack, and it's going to be F2. I close too many bracket. So I'm calculating it wrong. Let me see. Somebody found out before me that I got this kind of either semicolon or column or something is happening, that I don't have the VSCELL. So let's see what is happening here. VS count, VSCELL. this one. Ah, that's interesting. You see, I'm debugging totally live with you guys. Somebody probably found it out before me, and I'm slow. It's the morning. I still need to get my coffee. But I should be able to get my VSCELL. 1 is my F2, so I should be 01A. So I'm going to copy that, because that's what I want to get. I want a 01A. Okay, I got it. And this is how I debug that. So I'm going back. What happened is got nothing here, is I didn't type VS count. And even there, it doesn't work because I don't have my stuff on the side. So sorry about the delay, but at least you see how it is. I kind of narrowed down towards the problem, and I forgot the S of VS count. So now that I fixed that, and I copy it here, you see that suddenly now, I got a spreadsheet with the number of attacks by the first middle, right? By their first middle and their second middle to see the number of attack. And if I change, and if I get another team, now this changed automatically, and that tells me what's happening. So I got the name of the team. I can even make it like bigger here. And I can see who is their first middle and second middle, at least in the roster, and the number of attack they got, right? So that's what we have here. And then let's finish this one. So I got the team name, I got the set count, the number of set won by the team, the number of set played by number 9. These are some of the calculations that you can do. But I think this VS player and VS name is actually very interesting. So the question there, some of the stuff, and I'll have probably another video just for the response there, but I'm going to stop here because it's very long, is this is what you can do. You can create a table with 3 columns, right? The number of a player, its attack efficiency, the percentage of good pass, right? And you can actually have that for all the players. So what we can do is we can create a little table with all the players in a team, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever a number of players. And it needs to be dynamic. And you're going to have 3 columns. The number of the players, we can even put the name, right? The second column is going to be the attack efficiency and a number of good pass. So at least, and maybe just the outside, right? It's probably going to be better if we have all the outside, right? And if, you know, the column is 0, or there is an error, whatever, just show the ... so we have the information. So create this little spreadsheet with just the outside, the column. So it's going to look like this. I'm going to create a new one. But let's do something like this. It's going to be a new one. I want the name of the team, right? Here, I want the outside header number 1, outside header number 2, outside header number 3, so on, so on, so on. I want its name. I want its attack efficiency. And I want this percentage of good pass of that player. Okay, we'll pause now. I'll create the solution in the different videos. And if you want to continue, we'll continue with the education next time, and we'll talk about the VS Squat. You have a great day.